Hello, my name is Liz Swem, and my presentation is Sarapocial, Parasocial, What? A deep dive into parasocial relationships. A parasocial relationship is one in which a person develops a relationship with a person or character who cannot reciprocate feelings in the same way that most common relationships do, such as friends, family. It is often defined specifically as a one-sided relationship with someone who you cannot or do not know personally. This is a dictionary definition from dictionary.com. Think of these relationships like being a fan of a celebrity or a sports pro. Even if you've never experienced one, which is highly unlikely, you've likely met or been close to someone who has. Parasocial relationships are important because they are becoming more common. Through the use of technology, increasing use of social media, the internet, parasocial relationships are growing in number and affecting more people than ever before. As these medias and technologies become more prominent in today's culture, we need to understand how these relationships affect us to better prepare ourselves. According to one Time article, some estimates point to 51% of people having had a parasocial relationship, though only about 16% of Americans are willing to admit it. Just to give you some numbers to help put this in perspective. Your children are more likely than ever to develop parasocial relationships and feelings with characters and people who they may never know because of this. Because of this, it is even more important to be able to help them navigate these kinds of relationships and feelings in a healthy way. The article You've Got a Friend in Me by Brittany Huber does a wonderful job of giving suggestions on how parents and guardians can help children manage these kinds of relationships throughout life. It is in my sources at the last slide. So, what are some classic types of parasocial relationship? Classic types are often such as celebrities and fans and fictional characters and readers. For celebrities and fans, it's important to note that these parasocial relationships have been going on for a long time. The Beatles fever that was experienced when the Beatles became popular, Elvis, Britney Spears, Beyonce, boy bands of the 90s, because there's multiple there, One Direction, Taylor Swift, K-pop idols, and idol culture are all examples of celebrities and fans. For fictional characters and readers, it can also be fictional characters and watchers, actually. So it could be Disney princesses, Marvel and DC superheroes, Steve from Blue's Clues, Dora the Explorer, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Bluey. These are all characters that a child or even an adult can develop a close relationship with in their mind, even though they don't get feedback from the character or person themselves. Modern parasocial relationships are a little bit different or are developing a little bit differently. Celebrities and social media are still important, and it's important not to overlook that. Celebrities' relationships are quickly changing with their fans because of the nature of social media and its interactivity. Then there's also platforms like YouTube, Twitch, where these social media influencers and celebrities, such as Bunny Meyer, goes by Graveyard Girl, or Rhett and Link, who host Good Mythical Morning, plus their cast and crew, on YouTube. And then on Twitch, there's Dr. Disrespect, Ninja. There's a whole host of different Twitch streamers who go live most days, if not every day, and start developing these relationships with people who watch their streams, whether or not they chat. So it's important to identify that these are more modern examples of parasocial relationships, and the social media that we use impacts that. Children's parasocial relationships are often with fictional characters. Again, think Disney princesses, Marvel and DC superheroes, Steve from Blue's Clues, or Dora the Explorer, or others. They're often developed as a way to develop basic interpersonal skills in a low-risk environment. This is such as a child answering the screen to Steve when they're watching Blue's Clues, and eventually developing feelings for him, such as he might be an older brother figure for them. This is extremely prevalent with the older generation who did grow up with the first seasons of Blue's Clues. Especially if you remember this past pandemic, when Steve decided he was going to check in on everybody from social media, he got a huge response from those people who remembered those initial seasons of Blue's Clues and had developed this kind of relationship with him. So these kinds of relationships don't just last for as long as the TV show or the book lasts. They can last a lifetime. So it's important to be very careful as they are developed, respecting them, respecting the people who develop them, and making sure that they will come away feeling like they are not a problem because of this. Adolescent parasocial relationships are very similar. They're often with celebrities instead of with fictional characters, though they can be with fictional characters as well. Again, think the Beatles, Elvis Presley, Britney Spears, Beyonce, boy bands, One Direction, Taylor Swift, K-pop, and idol culture. There's more examples. There's plenty more examples out there. These are often developed as a way to explore more advanced interpersonal skills in a relatively low-risk environment. As most people will know, being a teenager is hard. Being a teenager is relatively, it feels high risk. So having these relationships with people who don't respond in the same way can help develop the teenage mind in ways that it might not otherwise develop, or might be shamed out of before they get to a certain developmental stage. So it is much more low risk to have these relationships with somebody who's not responding than it is always to have a relationship with somebody who can respond in real time for these individuals. There's also the idea of neurodivergence and parasocial relationships. They're often formed well into adulthood. They serve emotional, social, and mental needs, and they help to practice and perform interpersonal skills. There's a high chance that somebody with these kinds of relationships into adulthood might be more close to the neurodivergent spectrum, and because of this, they may be using these kinds of relationships to practice or get feedback on relationships in their own lives with real people as a way of learning and a way of managing those relationships. All in all, the key to parasocial relationships is developing healthy habits and healthy behaviors for the relationships, discouraging unhealthy patterns, encouraging healthy boundaries, and when you are in doubt, consulting a professional. These relationships can have a lifelong impact on a child or even somebody older. And it is important that we treat these people who have these relationships with respect and make sure that they know we don't judge them for the relationship, but rather that we support them and we just want the healthiest thing for them. In conclusion, parasocial relationships are normal. Most people develop some form of parasocial relationship, and it's usually in the form of childhood heroes, such as Batman or Superman, or even Steve from Blue's Clues. They can help development. They can help us develop interpersonal skills and interaction patterns that we might not have been privy to before being exposed to the character or the celebrity that we developed this relationship with. They can also satisfy needs. They can satisfy social needs that are not being met or that someone is not ready to have met in an in-person way. These kinds of relationships can help somebody genuinely develop a way to interact interpersonally before they're ready to interact with society on a larger scale. So it can help us develop ourselves in ways that we may not be prepared to do in person. And they can be just as healthy as any other relationship. And being healthy needs to be modeled and encouraged, just like any other relationship. We have to model and encourage our children's parasocial skills the same way we need to model and encourage their intersocial skills, so that they know that it's not necessarily out of the norm to have this kind of relationship, and it can be managed just like any other relationship, especially if they feel it's unhealthy. These would be my sources. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence, and I hope you got something out of this and learned a little bit more about parasocial relationships.